projecting financial statements. Okay, so we're still in years 5 to 6, and we'll be going public soon, maybe next year or the year after. It's coming up soon. You'll enjoy the process. Goldman Sachs is going to take us public. Okay, so when creating forecasts, we usually project at least 3 to 5 years. And again, we always start with sales projections. Remember, we talked about budgeting. We talked about sales is the most important thing you can forecast. It's the same thing with companies forecasting for financial models. And so you create projections, which people on Wall Street call pro forma financial statements. I don't know why. It's just a projection. Okay, so what is the most important thing to assess for a potential investment in a startup? What is it? Well, we talked about before, it's the management team. And there's no point in creating a financial model if you don't have an incredible management team. So when I do my due diligence on potential venture capital investments, I don't even bother making a spreadsheet or forecasting financials if we don't have the best management team in place. Remember, the jockey is always more important than the horse. And I love this quote from Michael Dell. I'm going to say it again. And it's, ideas are commodities, execution is not. Okay. So is the TAM big enough? I always ask myself that as well before investing in a company. Is the total addressable market big enough? And we talked about this on the first day of class as well. And so this company that we're going to invest in now, it's got a TAM of $50 billion. Now, bear with me for a while, okay? We're going to do a model, and we're going to assess what the TAM is first in order to be able to forecast revenue. So we're going to build a model, a long-term model. We're going to invest in this company because we just found out that the management team is amazing. Okay. And this management team has had multiple past exits before in the technology sector. And the size of the market is $50 billion. So we're really excited about this hypothetical investment. Okay. And the founder of this hypothetical company that we're going to model believes that his firm can capture 10% of the total addressable market in 10 years. So the TAM is $50 billion bucks, and this guy thinks that he can be 10% of that market in 10 years. So that's what is that? $5 billion in revenue. Okay. Let's look into this. So whenever you're creating models for private companies, okay, and today's session is all about private companies, and later we'll actually do a model on a public company, which is a lot easier because you have a lot more information. So when you're modeling a private company, you start with the total addressable market, and you figure out what percent of revenue this company could, or what percent of the TAM this company could get. So in this case, we know the TAM is $50 billion, and the founder thinks that he can capture 10% of that. Okay, so this guy is going to get $5 billion in revenue in 10 years. Okay, so we'll create revenue. Okay, we'll model out a long time, 10 years maybe, whatever, and then we'll list assumptions. And remember, everything's just a percent of revenue. And I'm going to show this to you in action now. Okay. So we start the model building with sales. Okay, so I'm using Microsoft Excel. You use whatever spreadsheet software you want. I like Excel because I've used it forever now. And it's actually pretty cheap if you use Microsoft Office Online. I think it's less than $10 a month if you're a student. And you get serious discounts too if you're in university. So I digress. Here we go. So that TAM is $50 billion. The market share in year 10 is $5 billion. And let's just say at the average selling price, the product that this company is making, the average selling price of the ASP is $100,000. And so if we take $5 billion in revenue, divided by $100,000 per unit, or the average price, then that gets you to 50,000 units sold in year 10. Okay, remember, what we're doing now is we're figuring out revenue. Okay, so, okay, fine. So in year 3, this person told us that he can get to $500 million in revenue, and most people I would call BS on it, but this guy is so awesome in the last company he founded that he actually got his last firm to $350 million in revenue by the 3rd year of existence, which is amazing. And again, most companies go public that are successful in year 7 or 8 or 9, whatever it is. Okay, so let's keep modeling this. And so I'm playing around with the numbers here, and usually this whole process of trying to figure out revenue takes me at least a day, right? And I make a lot of assumptions, and then I finish what I believe to be the perfect revenue forecast for the next 5 or 10 years, and then I go to bed. And then I get up the next morning and I look at it again with a fresh mind. And quite often I make minor tweaks here and there. And then I'm done with revenue and I model the rest of the company. So you're going to see a truncated or smaller version of this whole revenue process for me when it comes to forecasting. So as you can see, I'm forecasting the year-over-year growth in the number of units. And so by year 10, you see that they're expecting 50,000 units. And I'll just kind of walk through it until I get the right number set up. And I'll always list everything I'm thinking about as I go through this process. So when I revisit my model, I can understand the logic that was in my head at that time. Okay, so I'm going to read some of the line items off my Excel spreadsheet here. So in year 3, our guy said he can get to $500 million in revenue. This seems pretty aggressive. Let's assume it's $400 million. You see what I did there? It's a little bit more of an art than a science when you're modeling, right? The science is the mathematical calculations and the percentage of the TAM you think you can get longer term. But there's an art side to it as well. And that's why finance is a little bit more of an art and a science type of process or analysis process than accounting is. Okay, so this growth is pretty high. Let's assume it slows down a lot in future years just due to the law of large numbers. Okay, so I get to 50% unit growth in year 10. That still seems high. My numbers are way too big. I'm just reading here. Okay, let's haircut them a lot. Okay, but the increase between year 2 and year 3 seems nutty high. I don't think 10% share in 10 years can be done. I mean, there will be a recession at some point, and these growth rates seem too high. Okay, fine. Let's assume that this is our uber optimistic scenario as companies don't grow at triple digit for that many years in a row. Okay, so here's where I'm at right now. So 50,000 units in year 10. I'm at 51,000 now. In 2015, there's 20 units. The company just launched then. 200 the next year, then $4,000. Then 2018, I got 8,400. And then you can see the year-over-year growth there, which is high. It's still way too high. Look at that triple-digit year-over-year growth there in year 2023, 2024. Unrealistic. But the reason I'm showing this slide is because I want to show you that the revenue line item is quite simply the number of units multiplied by the average selling price of $100,000. Okay, and we're going to tweak that a bit. But I also want to show you this slide because you can see a yellow box there. In that yellow box, I put a comment. And if you're using Windows and Excel, you hit Shift F2, which inserts a comment. And then on Mac, you just right-click or whatever, and then put in a yellow comment. And the best practice is always to put your name in the comment. And quite often, if you're working with big teams of investment bankers or M&A people, whatever it is, or mutual fund analysts, what you do is you put your name in that comment as well as the date and the time that you put that comment in and why you put that comment in. It might be based on a conversation you have with somebody that's a C-level or executive or an investor relations professional at that firm. Okay, let's keep going. So I wrote here, again, there must be competition at some point, so we have to haircut the average selling price. So we'll assume competition enters the market in 3 years, and at that point, the price drops from $100,000 down to something else, okay? And so I did it right here. You see that actually by the end of the 3rd year and into the 4th year, I assume that the pricing point is no longer $100,000. It actually drops to $90,000. That's why I multiply by 0.9, okay? And so price of components come down as well. And I think this company actually is making a pretty revolutionary appliance. It's a hardware product that has some really cool software in it as well. Okay. Now this is just an exercise, so we're not going to go into too much detail of the qualitative background on this company. Okay. So we took a haircut pricing-wise. Okay. And then we comment our code or our spreadsheet, I should say. When I used to be a programmer at Accenture and other tech companies back in the 90s, I would program a lot, and I'd always add comments to my code. So when I revisit it in the future, or if a colleague revisited it, I could understand what the heck I was coding about at that time. And the same thing can be said here when it comes to Excel. Add lots of comments. Really important. Okay, so I'm expecting a 20% price cut the following year. Here you can see that on the spreadsheet. especially since component costs are always dropping. Okay, I understand what I was saying there. All right, and so I keep playing around with the model. I keep tweaking it. You can pause the presentation anytime you want and read my comments there. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. And then I assume that by year 10 or 2024, whatever it is, you get a 40% price cut. Okay, so prices come down significantly from 100 grand today to $40,000 longer term. Okay, great. And then what I do is I copy that revenue column, and I want to take that column and paste special as a row. Okay, so we can make our income statement. Remember, at the top of the income statement, you've got revenue in that row. Okay, and so what you do is you right click, you go paste special, you paste the values, and then you transpose. And transpose is just an Excel term for take columns, turn into rows. Okay, great. So we did that. And so I have all my comments here. The company said they think they can do $350 million in 3 years from now. Based on our revenue analysis and our revenue projections, we think $350 million is more appropriate. And I basically just took a 24-hour or 18 to 20-hour, whatever, exercise of modeling out revenue, and I truncated into, 10 minutes or so. Okay, great. So we're going to move on to expenses.